Hi, I'm Field Master Levy Cherbulenko, and in this series I explore the typical mistakes of people rated anywhere between 8,000 and 2,000. This is a first reaction, no engine analysis of a chess.com game played between 1169 versus 1171. Let's start. Alright, so e4, e5, knight f3 developing the knight, attacking the pawn, knight c6 defending the pawn, d4, so this is the sketch, right? d4. Other moves would be bishop b5 the Rui Lopez or bishop c4 the Italian game. Let's say d4, attacking the center immediately. Black takes, of course. Knight takes d4. Knight takes d4. This is actually a mistake by black. This is not actually the best move. Why is it so? Because when white takes the queen, and usually it's not a good idea for you to have a queen early in the opening. It's usually bad to develop it early. Why? Because usually if you develop it too early, your opponent will play like knight c6, attack your queen and develop their minor pieces with tempo, whereas you have to waste time, move the queen back, right? And so then it doesn't make sense to develop it in the center too early, because you have to go back anyway. So why is it good here? Well, it's good because black does not have a knight on b8, so they cannot play knight to c6. So if your opponent cannot attack your queen, then it can actually be good, it can actually be useful if it's in the center but cannot be attacked. And next, basically, white will play moves like knight to c3, bishop on e3 or f4 or g5, depending on the situation. Let's say if black plays knight f6, we can play bishop g5, pin the knight, castle long. This f1 bishop will probably go to c4, the best diagonal, attacking the Achilles heel in chess for black, which is f7. This h1 rook might come to e1, centralizing it, and then we can play also e5, right? Because black will play knight f6, so we can play e5 and attack it. If they don't play d6, we just play e5, we have to move a knight, and so we just get a huge space. But if they do play d6, it's still bad for black, because again, like I said, we play rook h3 e1, then we play e5, then we open up the e file and the d file. So if black takes, we'll take some way on e5, and basically we'll have two open files, the d file and the e file. And if black does not manage to castle, his king will be in big trouble. So basically this is bad for black. Why? Because it helps our fast development, which is knight c3, bishop f4 or e3 or g5 and long castle, and then all the other moves, right? It helps us develop quickly. That's why it's a mistake. Much better moves would be, basically there are two good moves here for black. One is bishop to c5, developing the bishop, attacking the knight, right? And another move would be knight f6. Knight f6, usually it goes something like, let's say knight takes c6, pawn takes c6, e5, attacking the knight. We usually go like queen e7, pinning the pawn to the king. We go queen e2 to unpin, then we go knight d5, then we go c4, then we can play like bishop a6, for example, pinning this pawn to the queen, and so on. Lots of theory here. We can also play knight to c3, for example, right? Develop the knight, defend the pawn. Then black usually goes bishop to b4, pinning the knight, again threatening knight takes c4. In this case, we can simply take on c6, pawn takes c6. Now again, we have to defend this pawn. So white usually goes bishop d3, guarding the pawn. Black goes typically d5, ed, cd. Let's say castles. Let's say also castles, and then black goes c6, and we have this structure which is about equal, let's say, with chances for both sides. So this is knight f6. Another move would be bishop c5, also good move. And after knight c6, we actually do not take. Black doesn't take the knight. Actually, there is this interesting move, queen f6. Queen f6, threatening both the knight, but also checkmate on f2. And now it's not so easy for white to play. Why? Because if they play queen d2, they block this bishop. If they play queen e2, they block this bishop. If they play pawn to f3, you never want to move a f-pawn like this. Again, is a Achilles heel in chess for white, because when you move a f-pawn, it simultaneously weakens both dark diagonals. It is very bad. Now white will never castle. White will never castle kingside, and this weakens the whole complex of dark squares and diagonals. Okay, so f3 is also bad. Black can just take, let's say, bc, you know, and just have a good position, just have an advantage. So then usually the best is like queen f3, but this also has a downside in that white has to double up the pawns. It also has an upside, of course, because white gets the g file, but also a slight downside, right? Then black usually goes bc, Now we get this interesting endgame. This is how it usually goes. But knight d4 usually black doesn't play, so this is a mistake. Queen takes d4, queen f6. Interesting. I mean, again, we don't develop this knight, we don't develop this bishop. We move a queen early in the opening, which for us, I told you, is like good because we have this concrete plan, right? Develop a knight, develop a bishop, castle long. It's something concrete. Whereas for black, queen f6, I mean, it does not really lead to development. So if it does not lead to development, then it's just bad. Okay, queen d1. I mean, this is too passive. Why would white go like so much back? I don't know. That's weird. If white simply wanna move a queen, I think we should move it somewhere maybe more active, I don't know, but not here. Even like a4 is more active because it pins the d pawn to the king. So when black in the future wants to develop this c8 bishop, they won't be able to. So even a4, and it also defends the e4 pawn. So I think queen a4 would be fine. Maybe there are other moves too. There's also e5, of course, right? Pushing the pawn, gaining space with tempo. Now they have to waste another tempo. They won't be able to play knight f6. You know, so it just hinders black's development a lot. Or let's say black plays, I don't know, queen b6, maybe we move a queen somewhere, I don't know, to e4 or to like f4 maybe, right? And then we can play knight c3 and then knight d5 with tempo, attacking the queen, attacking c7. And again, black cannot play knight f6. So that's also very good for us. Or if we play queen e4, we can't even play d6, because then we just take ed with check, right? So I think e5 would also be fine. But yeah, queen d1 is just too passive. It's way too passive. It's a mistake for sure. Bishop c5, now that's a good move. Developing the bishop, attacking f2. Bishop e3, that's a horrible move. That's the worst move possible. But white could have played here. The worst move possible. A much better move would be like queen f3. Like queen f3. And then queen f3, gf, yes, we have double pawns. That's a slight downside, but just much better than, if you compare, much better than what white played in the game. And on the upside, we have a g file. So now with the bishop left, g7, g5, the g7 is a bit weak. So we're gonna play rook g1. If black plays g6, that would weaken the dark squares. Then we have ideas like, you know, bishop h6 potentially, you know, after we move a knight somewhere, right? You know, this is fine. So for example, let's say black plays knight e7, we could play, let's say, knight d2. They play some move, let's say d6. We could play knight b3, attack this bishop. Let's say we go here, we could play a4, wanna play a5, win the bishop. Let's say we go a5 themselves. Then we can play bishop e3. Let's say we take, and then we can play like here, rook g1, put some pressure on g7, perhaps castle long, perhaps play f4, gain more space, right? This knight maybe will activate, we'll put it maybe on d4, then maybe eventually on b5, attacking c7. But if they play c6, to prevent knight b5, that would weaken the d6 pawn. And remember, we castle long, and we have rook on d1. So if we play c6, d6 becomes weak. And then we can also, if they played d6, to put even more pressure on the d6 pawn, if we play c6, I mean, we can play rook g2 and then lift the rook, right? And so have two rooks on the d file attacking d6. This is pretty interesting. Much better than what white played. Bishop e3 is absolutely the worst. Why is it so very... Oh my god, this is crazy. This is insanity. Why is it so bad? This is crazy. Because black could have just taken, we take, and then we have horrible pawn structure. We have not just double pawns, we have isolated double pawns because, you know, there's no other pawns on the neighbor files. Isolated double pawns. That's one. Weak e5 square, weak outpost, meaning, but when black in the future puts a piece, let's say like a knight, on e5, we can never attack that piece with like d4 or f4 because we don't have any pawns on the d or f files, right? So this is a great outpost, a forever knight basically for black. Also, our king is weak by playing fe, you know, like this diagonal is now open and e3 is weak, and when they attack e3, they're gonna attack our king. So the f file is now open, we cannot castle properly, right? And also on top of this, the b2 pawn is now no longer guarded. So black could, for example, just play queen b2. And we have a free pawn. It's horrible. And now we're down a pawn. And now also h was isolated. c was isolated. Besides, black can also play queen h4. Maybe even the best move. double attack, check and then take the e4 pawn. If we move the king, well, black just takes on e4, we've lost our opportunity to castle. And if we play g3, well, still queen e4, double attack, attacking the rook, attacking the e3 pawn, and again we have to move rook, and we've lost our opportunity to castle. And black can just play like queen e3, check, attack the rook, and so white is basically just lost. So a horrible move. Knight h6, oh my god, this is insane. The first thing you should always look at is forcing moves, contact moves. Never, knight h6 is a non-contact move, non-forcing move. Always first look at contact moves. Capture, exchange, sacrifice, check. Some move with some contact, right? There's some contact, not just a simple, natural, normal move like knight h6. You don't attack anyone, you don't take anyone. What's the last thing you think about? Always first check the forcing moves. So knight h6 is absolutely horrible. Okay, bishop c5, white's completely winning. Let's see. Here, good move. Let's say a very good move. Check. Bishop c3. Well, actually, maybe an even better move would be maybe like c3. We attack the queen. And now, if black is not careful, if he plays something like, I don't know, like queen a5, we should go bishop takes g7, game over. Double attack, game over. So black has to go like all, we need to find this. We need to go all the way back to like f8. That's also horrible. White still up a piece, completely winning. Black cannot castle, right? Because of a queen. And this is just a huge advantage for white. It's just completely winning, in fact. So queen a, but let's see, bishop c3, okay. Queen e4, queen e2. When you're up material, you want to trade. Because less pieces on the board, less complications, less tactics, and easier to convert. Okay, less mess. Castles. Okay, now this should be absolutely easy. f4, there's absolutely no point in f4. Makes zero sense. Why would you play 4? Only make moves that make sense. f4 doesn't make any sense. Like, who do you attack? What was the point? Much better would be something like bishop d3. Improve the bishop, make a forcing move, attack a knight, open up the e file. Next we can play rook e1, grab the e file, develop the knight, develop the a1 rook, right? There's no point in f4. That's a mistake. Rook e8, bishop d3, knight e3, mistake. Because let's see, yeah, rook e1, because now the knight is pinned, and so white can win the knight basically. After like bishop d2, say, right? If black's not careful. d5, yeah, mistake, simply bishop d4. Yeah, the knight's just pinned. The knight cannot move because white just takes on e8. h3, okay. Rook e1, activating the rook, c4, attacking the bishop, bishop e2, b5, c3. Alright, okay, rook f1. I mean, there's no point in rook f1. Just like, I don't know, some other move. Maybe rook b1. This would make much more sense. Yes, attacking this target, attacking this b5 pawn. Then we can also, you know, improve our knight. Maybe knight f3, knight d4, attack this bishop, put even more pressure on the b5 pawn. Make moves that make sense. Make always attacking moves. Always attack, especially like pawns, right? You see a pawn, attack it. Rook b1, put a knight on d4, something like that. Don't just make random moves like rook f1. Always attack, especially pawns, okay? a3, okay, that stops b4, yeah? Kinda, so that's not a bad prophylactic move actually. We play it nonetheless. Bam, bam, thanks. Rook a2, rook c1. I mean, okay, the threat was actually c3, right? The knight moves and then black takes on e2. So rook c1 is actually not the worst move, I guess, yeah. It's not the worst move. Although, you know, I just realized something. Black played what? Rook b2? No, that's bad. Black actually could have played d4. This again, forcing move. Contact move. Bishop takes d4, rook takes d2. Oh my god, and now again double attack. This is crazy. Not only do they win the knight back, they actually win the bishop back too. This is crazy. How do you like that? Now, of course, white is not obliged to take. For example, white could play something like knight f1, and after, let's say, d, just like bishop f3 or something. In which case, white loses just one piece, right? But you get my point. So maybe what would be a better move? Yeah, actually, rook a2, black found a good move. It's not so simple because if we play king f2, we play d4 still. If we play here, we play c3, and then if we move on, we take on e2. So it seems that white has to lose a piece, but not two pieces at least. Just one piece and still be winning. Yeah. But yeah, rook b2. Okay. Here. Okay. c3. That's weird. Should we play like here or here? I don't know. c3 is just bad. It's just completely losing. Takes. Yeah. Okay, interesting game. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.